All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to discuss the latest offseason news and rumors going on in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are recorded live regularly every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, even though we are live right now on Monday. I'll get into the reason why. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all that great stuff. If you feel like you're being ignored, you're not. You're just being starred throughout the show. We'll try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for more content over there. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 177 of our show. And like I said, we are live on Monday instead of our usual Thursday for the off season. And there is a main reason as to why, and that is fully on my behalf. I was definitely not in hosting shape for about a week. Let's just say that. I'm going to spare everyone the details of what went on. Was not feeling the best and definitely was not strong enough to be talking about this team for 2 hours. Even though I could probably talk about it forever, definitely wasn't in the mood at that current moment. But we are back. Things have been shifted. Things will be attend to after this week-long break that was no intended to be made. But speaking of a guy who comes in here in and out, even though you'll be more present in the off season, Andrew, you're here. It's just you and me today. Off season begins. World Series is done, and we've got plenty to talk about going into this winter.
Yeah, again, we got the World Series is over. A hell of a Game 7. You know, the ham-eating, bacon-bit bastards lost and choked away at our perfect opportunity. The Dodgers go back-to-back, and then all the small market teams are ready with their pitchforks to call out in that lockout in a couple after next season. But again, for right now, let's just worry about because we got at least 1 year of baseball to look forward to. And David Stearns, like we've said, he's got a lot of work to it. He's started and he's done faster than what most Mets GMs and executives have done of getting your coaching staff pretty much built before the offseason even begins, which is a rarity for this franchise that usually waits till about a week and a half before spring training starts to get their full-on coaching staff done. So it's good to see at least David Stearns getting it all in most of the heavy lifting done. He's still got a few smaller, positions to fill, but most of the big stuff has been filled. And you're seeing, what it is. And again, it's happy. It's the offseason. It's imaginary baseball. I'm already seeing god-awful, like I said last week, god-awful mock-off seasons. And you bet your ass I'm going to set my god-awful possession pretty soon. Again, videos are going to get put out, and I'm here. Because, I don't really care about the real baseball. I like the fake imaginary stuff. We're going to just team build, even though we have no power to do it in reality.
Well, it's always fun to imagine, always to talk about the hypotheticals, the ifs, the imagines, the everything out there, the having to play pretend, as Evan is saying here in the chat. I mean, come on, it's fun. Everyone likes to play GM, but again, we got to be realistic, and we've got to talk about the situation at hand because the Mets are coming off of a season that nobody wants to remember whatsoever with a near $400 million payroll. And speaking of those $400 million payrolls, congratulations to the Dodgers. They go back-to-back. Again, they are seen as the model organization at this current moment that is basically seems to be unbeatable at this point, and it seems like they have the endless resources to just put themselves in a position to win constantly, and they came through. It was quite a postseason, let me just say. It was very entertaining. I really enjoyed it. Some really good battles from both ends, both leagues as well. You had some Game 7s, some thrillers, some extra inning thrillers. I mean, it was fun October baseball. One thing I will say about this World Series, and I'm just going to point it out here. I know a lot of people talk about the presentation and the announcers and everything. Joe Davis is a great play-by-play announcer. Let me just say that. And I think that he does a decent job, especially on these national games. But I think this was probably one of the worst series that he has called in a while. And a lot of people were calling it on Twitter. And I kind of agreed that it was kind of an even balance where it seemed like he was getting a little bit more excited for the Dodgers as compared to the Blue Jays. But it's whatever. I felt it was just a little bit uneven, but either way, it still was a really good series. But as Evan is saying in the chat, saying he's also just too much of a yapper. But that is basically all behind. As I'm just gonna block out an echo that I'm getting from Andrew's mic. He'll try to fix that. But I think there is, one way that we can say, with this whole entire product, we don't know what it's going to look like in the long term, obviously, with an impending lockout possibly happening with the CBA negotiations. So it should be interesting. It should be how the Mets kind of, in relation to what they do with the offseason, like we've already said multiple times before, of who do they go all in on, what is going to be their level of risk, their motivation to win in 2026, because 2027, we don't know what's going to happen with baseball. I'm sure that we see baseball again, but there's going to be some different conditions, and that's definitely going to be in relation to a team that is going to have higher payrolls. There's definitely going to be some penalties in that regard, and there's going to be some different stipulations. So this is probably a one last chance of this realm of baseball. So it's going to be a little bit, let's just say that there's going to be a sense of urgency, I would say, for some teams in the current situation that they're in. And there's always these current situations that we go into. And one of those current situations of moving money and, with your payroll is going to be in relation to the Mets, in this certain video that we have coming out on Thursday, that is Andrew doing it solo, talking about, a piece that is on this roster that they could possibly offload and some potential moves that you could possibly see on this trade market. And obviously, like I said, with the whole scheduling being shifted the way it is, we're just going to slide the video into the podcast, and we're just doing the podcast in the usual video sense beforehand. So just to make up for that, and then we will be back on our as usual scheduled Thursday. So either way, Andrew, obviously, the World Series, everything is ending as of right now. The Mets obviously are looking at some alternatives. We saw some news come in today. Edwin Diaz will be declining his player option, which we kind of expected. AJ Minter is exercising his player option. He will be back in 2026. So big boom AJ will be back out of the pen. So that's definitely a big plus for a bullpen that is right now has a lot of empty holes going into this season, this off season. So I think we all kind of expected what we were really expecting. Minter obviously getting hurt. Pete Alonso, it was said that he's going to be opting out, but he already said it publicly. So the only guy left, Andrew, is Frankie Montas. And I know that we're all at the edge of our seat. The deadline, I think, is the 6th for those decisions to be made. And we saw quite a few throughout baseball earlier today. Guys like Michael King, who has been talked about as a possibility on the free agent market for starting pitching. We saw Robert Suarez opt out as well from the Padres. So obviously the free agent market is starting to balloon up as to possibly what we've expected.
again, it's part one. Obviously, now with the World Series over, we'll start the team and player options. So those are the 6th, and then we'll get to countdown. Obviously, after the awards have been given out to the non-tender deadline, which again will be another group of free agents that will be added, and then all hell can break loose. I mean, yes, there can still be officially some signings, but again, I won't expect a lot of anything until like probably once you get the non-tender deadline the non-deadline passed, and then you can start seeing some teams make their moves. But again, with Diaz, kind of expected. There was the only homerism being like, well, he likes him so much, he would stay. He's going to want to top the Tanner Scott deal, so you just add 2 years to the deal, potentially see that. Pete Alonso, really hates his fans and wants to opt out and test the market. What a fake guy. I thought he really wanted to be a New York Met. That's all what you guys tell me all of a sudden. But, kidding aside, yeah, again, there's nothing crazy. Minter, again, coming off the injury, he was not going to say no to $11 million. And, I can't wait for the Frankie Montas notification. It says, oh my God, shocker. He's picking up his $17 million offer because no one would give him a hand basket and a piece of bacon just to go on the market again. So get a free $17 million. You take that every day of the week. It is, $17 million wasted. But again, it's only for one more year and then he's gone. So you get rid of it. At least it's not term. But with all that being said, again, also you're starting to see some Rule 5. We saw something with Rule 5 guys. The Mets have a few guys that can be, but again, those are lesser known guys. Like Nick Morabito was kind of the biggest name that has to be added to the 40-man roster potentially. Could be claimed in the Rule 5 draft. But again, it's a lot of crap that I love. It's just random roster construction, dumb nerd shit that, teams got to do, and it's fun. And again, we've seen, at least in the non-tender in the category, every year. Kyle Schwarber was the big one year. Obviously, Cody Bellinger was another. So, again, as of right now, you could be the free agent market doesn't look great. I'm not saying there's going to be a great non-tender candidate. Maybe it's Luis Robert. That's the one I'm maybe kind of holding my head up. Maybe the White Sox are just stupid, but there's also $20 million at this team. Maybe doesn't want to pay, but who knows? But again, right now, it's all the little busy work when 40-man roster starts. You're going to see a bunch of guys get non-tender. The Rays DFA'd 7 guys because now you have to put guys back on the 40-man off the 60-day IL. So you're going to start seeing some more transactions around baseball, and more guys are going to get loose. And I can't wait for those first couple of waiver claims that everyone's going to lose their shit. That David Stearns is picking up dumpster diving again. When again, he really can't do much right now.
Well, of course. I mean, there's always the overreaction of everything. And, there's points in the offseason where things open up. We know the GM meetings. We know the winter meetings and everything. We've had plenty of these things go in and out, and we'll see how this offseason is going to be. We'll see how fast and how aggressive teams are, like we said, with this impending lockout. And obviously, we'll see what these smart moves end up being. And, when it came to, guys like Frankie Montas, who end up having that player option for 2026 that he's likely going to pick up, but it has not been announced for, Jay-Z here makes a really, really good point, saying $17 million that could have been used to keep Alonso or Diaz. I don't care how rich Cohen is, every dollar matters. And that's what we have definitely said when it's come to the whole situation with Pete Alonso, and for even with these other guys of paying top dollar for some of these pieces that are not the best. And that's how the Mets kind of get tied into some of these contracts that they kind of regret later and kind of hand tie them to possibly improve the team with better guys on the market. However, you are in a situation right now where the Mets obviously have a lot of question marks going into this offseason. It's not just with internal, but also what are they going to do externally to make sure that a lot of these shortcomings don't happen again. And it's not just they didn't hit well, they didn't pitch well. It's more of just all the mentions of, can we bring in guys who are available? Can we bring in guys who can provide this type of value to the team? Can they sew up the loose ends and weaknesses that we had on this team? Can they fill in the margins well? And also, can they change the culture, as Evan says in the chat here? Because it's going to be
Fucking word. I hate that word.
It's going to be a very interesting way that the Mets will possibly approach this, and I think we're still getting that echo on your end, Andrew. I don't know what keeps going in and out. You might have to just keep muting your mic. I don't know what's going on, but it's just on playback. It'll probably sound a little bit annoying to some people that are watching. But again, we will figure out what they do and fill in these certain moves as the offseason continues. I have a few guys on mine that I think they are going to pursue. I have a few areas that eventually we will talk about. We are going to talk about one target on the trade market today, later on in this show. However, we do have some other things that we do need to get into internally as well, and that being more of the new coaching staff, which has definitely shown across some discourse over this past year of how this team has been looked at coached. We have been part of that rally as well, of how we don't think that this team was coached correctly, and a lot of dimensions as to why the Mets cleaned out this coaching staff and they have been filling it in. We know that they brought in a bench coach named Kai Correa, who was with the Giants and was looking and is probably looking to be a future manager. They also brought in a new leader of hitting development, that being Jeff Albert, and he was going to have another hire, which he just hired, that is going to report to him as the everyday whereabouts hitting coach for this team coming up. And we're going to get into that hire. They also have a new pitching coach, or expected to hire a pitching coach that is not completely official yet, but it seems like he is the front runner and likely will get the job, but it has not been made official yet. But as for this new hitting coach, let's introduce everybody to Troy Snitker. Now, for those of you who know that last name, that is the son of former Braves manager Brian Snitker, who actually just hired Walt Weiss as their new manager today. That is the Atlanta Braves, as Snitker, I believe, retired or resigned. I forget what happened there. But he is 36 years old. He was born in Atlanta, Georgia. So yeah, enemy territory, whatever. But he will end up reporting to the Mets' new hitting director for Major League Hitting, Jeff Albert, who he ended up working in the Astros organization. The resume and timeline: he played college baseball for the State University of North Georgia. He was drafted by the Braves in the 19th round, traded to Pittsburgh in 2013. He played some independent league, never really played for the Pirates that much. He ended up retiring from professional baseball due to a concussion. He ended up coaching for the State University of North Georgia, going back to his alma mater. And then from 2016 to 2018, he was a minor league hitting coach for the Astros in their organization. Then from 2019 to 2025, his most recent job being the head Astros hitting coach, which actually he was a co-hitting coach, or under, I forget his first name, but Alex Clintron, I think that's his name, for the Astros for multiple years. Now you look as to what the Astros were able to do under Snitker. You have pretty much top 10 in almost every single category. Batting average on balls in play, on base percentage, slugging, home runs, runs per game, weighted runs created plus, batted ball data. They lift the ball, they pull the ball, they are able to hit great line drives. Now, obviously, in context, like we said with the Mets and their results of what was going on, it looked good from certain positions because obviously they had individual performances, but they weren't able to put them together. So I managed to go on and add in the ranks with runners in scoring position, which we know is a big point of emphasis for this team's offense. And you look at what the Astros were able to do under Troy Snitker as well. Third in batting average, 12th in batting average on balls in play, 5th in on base percentage, 2nd in slugging, 3rd in home runs, 3rd in runs per game, 2nd in weighted runs created plus. And again, lift the ball, pull the ball. They hit home runs with a lot of these fly balls with runners in scoring position. Maybe a lot of that has to do with guys like Jordan and guys like Kyle Tucker, but they had a really, really deep lineup. There was a lot of guys of different play styles and pieces that fit in very, very well, that complemented each other, and maybe that's what can be translated over to the New York Mets. So Troy Snitker, the Mets' new hitting coach. Welcome, Troy. I know he's watching right now. But Andrew, Troy Snitker is going to be the guy reporting to Jeff Albert, a guy that you're very familiar with. We talked about him. Obviously, again, on paper, it looks good. Consensus looks like a good hire. But like we said, the point of emphasis here is going to be the young guys and the depth in the lineup and, finding a balance for this offense and finding consistency for this offense. And hopefully Troy Snitker is the answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that Astros lineup, and there's a lot of talent there, but also, again, you can say that, there's just too much talent there. But if you look at it, my main thing is what I said is I don't really care who the name is. It's all about the process. And yes, you could say, well, they have, the Crawford boxes. Again, you could say, but he's telling his hitters, play to your field, pull the ball. Guess what? You have both great pull side on both sides. The Crawford box is the left, and obviously in right field, I think it's 320 on the line, and it's like similar to Yankee Stadium. So again, as long as his processes are fine, and I can understand fans being like, well, how much, and this is the same kind of conversation we're going to have, how much can coaching really matter to the stars? Like you said, it's not about the star. Again, you really can't tell Juan Soto, even though we had a hitting coach that, told Juan Soto, hey, you're not that, you got to do something different. He tried to.
Just like how Jay-Z is saying here in the chat, saying any breathing human will be an upgrade over Chavez. Yeah, basically. But also, it's not just, the best of the ass here. We're looking at one of the best that was definitely coaching a really good staff for multiple years. So, yeah. Continue.
Yeah, and to be able to have this kind of candidate where it's like you brought up, there's been a track record of success, and the only reason he's available is because, similar to the Mets, the Astros underperformed this year. They had a rare outlier season where they kind of wanted to shake up their coaching staff. He becomes available, and you're able to take advantage of it. Like you said, he's had connections with Albert. He's worked with them in the past. So again, you're seeing some symbiotic relationships throughout the coaching staff. What was the problem when you have, Dinosaur Chavez and Barnes? You got two different philosophies battling each other, and one's a moron. So again, really can't have, everything working in one row, doing it the same thing where there's a common goal, and both guys have a similar philosophy to get to that goal. And that's the main thing. And we've already seen, and we already know it's built-in excuses when the Mets go 6 games without hitting. Just because of his last name, they're going to be, well, he's just a sleeper agent because his son's, he's Brian Sticker's son. He's here to make us suck. And I can already see it coming. We already saw it when he was announced that this was a horrible hire just because of the name. Again, I've made it very clear. Again, the autograph guy and me suck. Again, we're hiring all these nerds. What am I supposed to get signed? These guys are a bunch of 30-year-old, algebra teachers. I don't care about these people. I want major league players. You didn't get any of that, and we'll see what the third base coach looks like again. They at least have their target for third base coach. Obviously, losing Antoine Richardson, we'll see who they replace it first. But again, I'm okay with it. Again, like you said, you can look good on paper in the offseason. We need to see games being played, but as long as you're seeing development from the kids, the younger guys and the talents, the Alvarezes, the Beatty, again, the Sotos, the Lindors, those guys don't matter in this situation. They don't need, they don't need a hitting coach. We'd like to see the young guys, and again, it looks like they're more focusing on that next group, but obviously they still have Alvarez and Beatty. If Vientos and Mauricio are still here. But again, you've seen the Jet and the Beatty and Jet and the Benjes. Those are who they're focusing on. But if you can get more out of the bottom line of that youth, and you see there are guys that a few tweaks here or there can make a fringe player a major league player to a great player. And also, sometimes it's all just one tweak, and it gets for younger players that are more willing to listen and want to learn and want to get better. You have those better coaches, which he has that track record. Kyle Tucker, everyone in Jordan, all these guys, he was there when they were younger. Like Tucker was a rookie in 2021. He was there in 2019. So again, I'm not saying, Kyle Tucker's a great player. Again, we'll see how much he gets paid in the offseason. But Kyle Tucker struggled a little bit. And Stinger kind of helped him through to get to what Kyle Tucker is now. So that's my main thing. I get it. It's not a flashy name. It's not sexy. And again, the first, this is especially with this position, the first cold streak, everyone's going to ask for his head. But again, it is a David Stearns hire. He has relationship with the new, Jeff Albert being the new mastermind of hitting. They have a formal relationship. So again, two guys that are willing to work together and not going to kill each other, and all speaking about the same philosophy. And that's been my main key with all these hires. Get the philosophy right. I don't really give a shit about the names, even though, again, the autograph guy inside me hates this because they're a bunch of nobodies. As long as the team's winning, I don't really care. And again, Stearns being able to put his guys in the position. No more hand-me-downs. No more, Hefner's this and this and this guy. No.
Yeah.
These are Stearns guys. This is what Stearns wants the way to be. And let's see if he brings, again, once we get to the external, bringing his guy to build his roster the way he wants his team to play.
It's about the parallels. That's literally it. These guys need to be on the same page. That's literally it. You can't have inconsistent messages being sprayed out. And that's what we seem to have. And that's basically what the Mets need to figure out. That's what they need. They need that continuous type of thing. They can't just go year to year because they're putting in a lot of resources into this team every single year. And they have not been getting these certain results consistently. They have seen 2 playoff appearances out of the 5 years that they have had under Steve Cohen in this new ownership. And to have a top 5 payroll or a top 3 or 1 payroll every single year and have those mixed results, you're going to have to, pull it up from the roots. And that starts with the coaching. And like we said, with how poorly we saw and thought that this team was coached, that was going to be the first domino to fall. And if it ends up not working, then it's going to be an even different conversation that we have going forward for the future of this team. Now, when it comes to Troy Snitker, it seems like we have a more modern philosophy, which I'm definitely excited for. And I'm hoping that it can have an impression on either the young guys, and maybe it does help guys like Soto or Lindor, or maybe bring Nimmo back into the swing of things or something like that, because we know that, the talent is still there in this lineup, obviously. And, maybe it gets a certain someone if he ends up coming back. Maybe it gets him back into his full prolific power production, and we're not seeing below 40 home runs, or we're seeing, the 17 home runs at the end of May, and we're seeing them ball bunched together and inconsistent. But hey, not bitter at all. Not like you wasted 7 years on that, but whatever. Moving on. Snitker, now one detail that I do want to point out, because a lot of people were talking about it on Twitter. Obviously, Yordan Alvarez being there, Kyle Tucker, all these great players that the Astros had during that decade of success that they had in the offense. We know that in 2017, they cheated. If you think that there's certain players that did, I don't know. But again, he was there from 2019 to 2025. 2017 was when it happened. After 2019 was when that came out. So the fact that he stayed with the organization afterwards makes me believe that he likely was not involved in that, or didn't really have that much of a factor, because it seemed like they had him for way more years afterwards, after that cheating scandal was years behind in the rearview mirror. And once that cheating scandal ended up in public, 2022, the Astros ended up winning the World Series again. So I'm not going to say that he is completely in full credit as to what, but it definitely is telling that he is a valuable asset. Alex Clintron, like I said, the other guy, when he was made available, he was actually on my list as a possibility to be their hitting coach. The guy right beside him, symbiotically that had a lot of success, like you said, in parallel, I'm going to take that as a good close second. I'm not going to lie. And I do like this hire. So does it apply? We'll see. It all is really just with the results. And again, like we said, after plenty of years, we are not afraid to talk about another direction that this team can go. And that probably would go with the personnel, like we said. And we're going to have to ask some tough questions of who's who. Because again, you had coaches, you had managers, you had these pieces that David Stern's inherited. What's the next thing that he's inheriting? The players. He's inherited a lot of players that were signed here before he was here. So again, that would be the next step. So right now, the step right now is coaching, and we will see what they can translate it to. Let's hope that we see an efficient process out there on the field, and the offense, doesn't go through these week-long streaks or months that are great or months that are full-on terrible and a full-on liability to the team, and putting them in a position where they just can't win, which seemed to be one of the problems in 2025. Whether they were top this or that in this category, the consistency wasn't there. It just wasn't. And it just did not make sense for them to carry along these coaches. Speaking of coaches, there's another one that I want to put out here, and this is on the pitching side. The Mets, it looked like that was going to be a little bit more longer of a process, but it seems like they have narrowed in on who their next pitching coach is. Their next pitching coach, for those of you who have not seen yet, meet Justin Willard. They are expected to hire him. He is seen as the favorite. We don't know yet if this is a completely official, but it looks like this is going to end up happening. We have seen many times where the Mets have, pulled out of a situation, or they maybe changed their mind at the last minute because they just love their drama. But Justin Willard, the Mets, they're closing in their search. This was a report from Will Salmon a few days ago that Justin Willard has emerged as the favorite for their new pitching coach position. Willard is the director of pitching for the Red Sox. He also spent several years with the Twins. With his resume and timeline, full-on breakdown, he played in college baseball for Concord University from 2010 to 2013. He graduated with a bachelor's degree of science in business administration, management, marketing, and finance. He also graduated from Radford University with a master's degree of business administration. And in 2017 to 2021, he was a minor league pitching coach in the Twins organization. From 2021 to 2023, he was promoted to head pitching coordinator for the minor leagues for the Twins organization. And then he was the major league pitching director, like we just said, from 2023 to 2025 for the Red Sox. We know that we have seen some mixed results with the Red Sox. So from 2023 to 2025, we have seen some really good batted ball data. The results have not been fantastic. Maybe that factors into them pitching at Fenway. I don't know. Who knows? I guess we're going to have to find out, but it seems like a lot of the batted ball data, keeping the ball on the ground, keeping the ball out of the air, seems like they're suppressing some hard contact from their starting pitching and their relief pitching. We know that there's been a lot of turnover in the Red Sox rotation ever since that they made, the trade with, Chris Sale, and what was the other? There was plenty of moves. Andrew, you probably remember this better than me.
Yeah, the David Price, Porcello, Sale rotations, moving into the obviously now in the Crochet era. There was, between them, it was a kind of that down period where you really couldn't develop. Like Brian Bayo is their kind of best development project, and even it's flawed. But
lots of injuries too.
Yeah, a lot of injuries. But you've seen them kind of do the Mets thing to taking the guys like Giolito and those like kind of reclamation projects. Yeah. Some have hit, some have not. Again, it's kind of an up and down in Boston.
So obviously, Justin Willard, you look at it, he's not a big name again. This is a young piece. He is 35 years old. I mean, it's possible that he would be one of the youngest pitching coaches in the league. So you're starting to see guys, below 40, in their 40, they're young. Like, this is a new age that you are seeing. I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter, obviously, whether it's old heads or people who like the big names of everything, saying, well, this guy wasn't great in the minor leagues or he never pitched, so what the hell does he know? Relax. Again, relax. There is part of a process. There's a reason as to why Stearns likes this guy. I know Stearns cannot be trusted. He's the devil. He had a horrible season, and he should be thrown into the dungeon. But we've seen him make some really, really good hires along with the Brewers. Speaking of another hire in terms of pitching for their Florida roving pitching coach, I think for like all of their their development pieces, they've hired Jimmy Nelson, former Major League pitcher. He will be joining the Mets organization, who also was a pitcher under David Stearns in Milwaukee. So you're starting to see a little bit of a connection here. Maybe a little bit of nepotism here with Snitker as the hitting coach, and maybe he's a double agent for the Braves, but you never know. Again, you never know what these guys can help out, and with a more advanced age of technology, analytics, all this data, it's time that the Mets go into that level. And before everyone says that analytics can't be everything, the team that just won back-to-back World Series championships, they are the kings of using advanced data. And that's the main reason as to why pretty much every single contract that they deal out, like we have said, and all of those additions they make, they're to the right guys and the right formula because they have consistency and continuity. A lot of that has to do with coaching and the organization. So again, if you want to be like the Dodgers, this is some of these little moves that are very, very important. I know Andrew Freeman is a great executive because he plays with monopoly money at this point. But can David Stearns be or Andrew Freeman? Maybe, because did everybody know that Andrew Freeman was on the Rays before he went to the Dodgers? What do the Rays do? Andrew, what do the Rays do? What do they look at?
I mean, they're just kind of nerds, and they don't win anything. So I wouldn't use the Rays as a good.
They got no resources, right? And what teams have the resources? Who has the big wallet of Steve Cohen? Yeah, exactly. Put it all together, baby. Put it all together. And that's how you get a great organization. Rome's not built in a day. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know what this hire is going to do for the pitching staff. But from what I'm seeing, from some of the quotes that we have seen from this guy, there was a quote that I don't know specifically where it is. Maybe I have it bookmarked. I'm not sure. But he talked specifically about the Mets, not the Mets, pitching. A few years ago, he talked about, having your best pitch, throwing strikes with it, with good, obviously having the best command. And if it's getting tattooed, the pitch is just not that good. So it's more of this concept, and that's just me paraphrasing in that way, but it's more of just the concept of utilizing your arsenal and figuring out sequence, throwing competitive pitches, getting ahead in the counts, and finding ways to, put away batters at a timely fashion, something that they really struggled with in 2025, and we've seen many, many times under Jeremy Hefner. Andrew, we've talked about this so many times before. Jeremy Hefner, the walks, it was never fixed. And it seemed like everybody who came here, all they do is walk guys. That's it. That's all they do. That seemed to be their only purpose in life when they put on a Mets uniform, is just walk guys and throw shitty payoff pitches. That seemed to just be the entire MO with this Mets pitching staff under Jeremy Hefner.
Yeah, I think the quote you were saying was like, if your stuff is good enough, you should throw it in a zone, and if your
Yeah,
stuff isn't good enough to throw it in a zone, you need to get better stuff or some shit like that. I was like, all right, that
yeah,
works. I mean, that's the type,
yeah.
pitch to it your strengths, and again, if it's dog poop, don't throw it. Again, like we said, I mean, this is the way Stearns wants to build it. Again, you want to be this analytically driven. He's like, "Oh, the Dodgers have Mark Pryor as their pitching coach." I mean, yeah, they get to have former all-star relievers. We get nerds. I mean, again, the autograph guy is really pissed off. But again, if this is who Stearns wants, and again, like we said, how young they are. This isn't like a Mike Maddox situation. We're like, "Oh, you're gonna go hire Mike Maddox? He just got fired. You bring him in. What? Has he only got maybe 1 or 2 years left in him? Like then he's gonna fall out and die? I mean, these guys are 30-year-old.
Dude. just go ahead. Move. Go.
But again, getting to the point where it's like, okay, all these guys are, early, late 30s. They could be here 15, 30, 45 years if they're good. Where, like, if you were to go to that old, veteran route, again, they ain't got long for this world. So it's hard to say, okay, they want to go young. They want to continue to use the data and use it as a tool. Don't use it as a Bible, but use it as a tool to improve these pitchers. And, hey, that's how it works. And they continue to improve players. So, again, I get it. David Stearns has any faith right now. Again, after one awful year and one good year that ended up in the World Series. I mean, he's more Joe Shane than he is Andrew Friedman. So again, year 3, big year. We'll see. But now he's being able to name all his people, and that's okay. So we'll see how it is. The process. There should be no. Well, I want to do this, old Matt. Everything is now the way it's supposed to. And we'll see going forward. Again, I'm not going to say, like we was talking about earlier, Red Sox really haven't developed a ton of pitching. We saw it at the back half of the season with guys like Peyton Tolley that got called up, where it's like, okay, maybe there's something, but they really haven't been able to develop like a guy even to the level of maybe a Sprout or Tong, where it's like they really haven't. But again, they've done a lot of the reclamation projects, and obviously when you go trade for Garrett Crochet, he was great. Nick Pivetta had some up and down seasons there when he was in Boston, but then obviously he leaves and gets better with San Diego. So maybe that is something. But again, I'm not going to poo-poo the move. I'll poo-poo just because, again, I can't get this guy to sign cards and it's just a bum nerd. But again, it's the way the baseball is going. It's getting younger and younger. And again, adapt to the times or die.
Yeah, and if he turns, the Mets sign Zach Davies and they turn him into a Cy Young guy, then maybe his autograph will be worth something, If. Don't encourage him, Matt. Don't encourage him. Please don't. Don't encourage him to demonetization, please. That's all I ask. Listen.
What do you mean? I'm just saying, we clip farm now, so I got a clip farm for for the content. There's nothing wrong with that. I didn't say anything bad. I mean, just old people are closer to dying than young people. Sorry, it's just a fact.
Yeah, I know that's more of just a given. Let's just say that more just a given. But hey, listen, I think again things need to come together a lot better. There needs to be continuity, and that was the main reason as to why there was so much question with this Mets team and their organization and the consistency, because it seemed like nobody was on the same page. And there was a lot of question from me of them inheriting these coaches 2 years ago. This is what I wanted 2 years ago. Maybe they were just waiting for guys to fall into their lap. Maybe Troy Snitker was the guy that they were eyeing to be available, or maybe Alex Clintron was, and they ended up, having both of those guys available, and then they went with Troy Snitker. Maybe, Justin Willard was somebody that they were looking at as well. Who knows what it was, but I think that from what we are seeing from the, quotes that we are seeing, it looks like consensus-wise, because I'm not going to say, well, this is completely 100% going to work. It's the magic formula. But consensus-wise of the message being sent, consistent and modern as compared to inconsistent dinosaur. That's good. That's what we like. That's what we really, really like compared to what we had a few years ago of, veterans not trying to learn on the job, or they don't want anybody learning on the job. So again, no quick fix about the process. If the process is efficient, and these coaches will be able to do their job. Not really about, all the results are on these coaches and all those messages that are being sent. It's just the fact that there has to be continuity and there has to be a message that is sent, whether it is from the leaders, the coaches, of what is okay and what isn't, and what is efficient and what isn't. It just seems like the Mets had this mindset for so many years and still are, where they just come up from just 100 standpoint saying, well, that's just baseball if that happens. Well, why did that happen? Because when things do happen for the Mets, they usually go poorly. So let's see something better. That would be awesome. Either way, we talked about the hitting coach. We talked about the pitching coach. The Mets actually do have 2 coaches that will be departing as well, and I want to get into those just to close off the coaching changes. It seems like those are the last major ones, the base coaches, it seems like, mainly because we have 2 coaches leaving us. Jeff Passan on X earlier this week said that pitching coach Desi Druschel is returning to the Yankees after spending 1 season with the Mets. Druschel, a veteran coach who received permission to talk to other teams, will rejoin the Yankees as an assistant pitching coach to Matt Blake. Jeff Passan also reported later on about first base coach Antone Richardson, who had a fantastic year. It was one of the bright spots, one of the few bright spots for this team after a disappointing end in 2025, saying that the Mets and first base coach Antone Richardson have not come to terms on a new contract, and Richardson is expected to leave the organization. Richardson is lauded for his work with the Mets base runners and will seek another job when his contract expires. Andy Martino went on to follow up for this whole situation because we expected Richardson to be back, but he doesn't look like he is coming back, saying if you're looking for an explanation for why the Mets lost a coach they wanted to retain in Antone Richardson, I'm guessing it will all make sense in early November. The team did everything it could to re-sign him, but he clearly wanted to become a free agent. From experience, I would speculate that this typically means a coach simply has somewhere else to go. He or she wants to go, working with a friend or a former coworker. So we don't know what Antone Richardson has in mind, but listen, there was a lot of panic from Mets fans when this obviously came out. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that Antone Richardson isn't a loss. However, from the overall reaction, let's just say this is a lot. I know that Stearns is right now seen as a hot seat. Everyone is sour after a disappointing end to the season. Everyone is pissed off. But when you're getting to resort to a part of the first base coach, I think that's getting to a little bit extreme, especially when you talk about the context along with it. Andrew, I think it's very easy to say that since the Mets hired a bench coach in Kai Correa, Antone Richardson likely wanted to be a bench coach. Likely. Maybe he wanted to be a bench coach. They already filled that position, and he ends up leaving. That's pretty much it. That's all really what I see. And listen, we've talked about it before. We're holding on to a 2025 team here, a piece to the 2025 team here that did not succeed. And again, Antone Richardson was the antithesis of the success for this team because he was so good for them. He was a great asset. Almost made Juan Soto into a 40-40 player. But to me, this just looks like this year's version of Jose Iglesias. Someone that they're holding on to that was so good at the height that they need to keep them. And if they see them going elsewhere, they will freak out. Because Mets fans freaked out when they saw Nick Madrigal get signed. And Jose Iglesias went elsewhere. I'm not saying that they're completely the same, but again, when you're talking about the bright spots, remember where the Mets were before Jose Iglesias got here. Remember how the Mets look this year without Anton Richardson. He was a bright spot, big impact. Like that's how I see it. Like, I feel like that's how it's being viewed. And I'm not saying that it's a bad loss, but he's got the business side of baseball on his mind. You can't just sit here and blame him. You can't.
Yeah, but also, again, when your team has been dog shit in the way the season is, everyone's going to be angry. I understand that. But here's the dumpster Dave. Just offer him $55 million to stay. I'm kidding. You offer me $55 million, I'll stay right there. If the average base coach is making $500,000, here's $9 million. Keep your happy ass right there. I'm kidding, of course. Obviously, everyone wants to move up in life. But again, when Juan Soto goes back to his normal and sells 6 stolen bases next year, we're all gonna be like, "Well, damn, what the hell happened? Maybe he did have that big." And the Mets didn't, aren't as effective running the bases. You're gonna have that in the back of your mind. Damn, you could have just gave that guy $10 million to shut up and keep his ass at first base. Well, like, money talks. I get, obviously, we don't know. No, we'll never know the situation. And like you said, he probably wants to be a bench coach and move up in time. But you know what? Some guy, and maybe he's hell bent on wanting to be a bench coach. But I expect 90% of us, if you say, hey, you overpay me, I will stay happily right here. Maybe he's a part of that 10%, and who knows? Maybe Stearns did not want to pay him more than whatever. But again, like you said, it's a little thing to bitch and moan about. But the way this season's gone, fans have every right after this type of season to bitch and moan about stuff, because when you have so much put into this organization and you have that much of a downfall, yeah, fans are going to be overrate, like you said, anything, but they have that kind of right to say, hey, I get it, but that's how fans
the
are.
Thought of just like, oh, let's retain everything from something that didn't work. Like, I'm not going to say, I know that Richardson individually did really, really good work, but it's like, really? This is like, we need to, because like I'm seeing a team that just catastrophically failed, and I see guys who's like, oh, maybe we can bring this guy back and bring this guy back. You failed. You fucking failed. And I understand going out from the outside of the organization being angry, but it's like spending more money to, retain someone where, I mean, he didn't benefit us enough. Let's just let me cope here. But I'm not saying that it's a small loss and we shouldn't worry about it. But it's like, come on. The things are not going to, like, first base coaches are not going to stay here forever.
Hey, all I'm going to say is the Dodgers first base coach went and managed the Marlins, and the Marlins were not dog water. They have importance. I'm not saying that they're be all end all. But all I'm saying is coaches' salaries don't go against the EBT tax or whatever the hell it's CBT tax, whatever.
Yes. That's why I don't think it's a money situation.
Yeah. Get him $15 million and have him shut his mouth. Like, you could do that and give Cohen's money. But again, the guy probably wants the promotion. The Mets have no ability to give him the promotion. Again, when we want to go back to being one of the worst base running teams next year, yeah, there's going to be a big hole. When Juan Soto goes back to his norm and steals 10 bases, if it happens, if that
ends up happening, then it's going to look like a bad move. But is anybody going to be upset with Anton Richardson with the work that he is doing in 5 years? Like, that's what we're going to point back to, Like, again,
this fan base thinks, again, that's how this fan base is. If you get a little cult hero or a little thing, you have legacy in this fan. It's just how it is. So again, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Was I pissed when I saw the passing notification? I'm like, yeah, but then you took 2 minutes. You're like, all right,
the guy no other team has drama like this. Yeah, exactly. True.
I mean, we have no drama. What are you talking about? We just suck. There's a difference.
It always just seems like things are just getting dragged out. Where we're resorting to now base coaches getting Jeff Passan notifications.
Why? And by the way, why is he breaking everything in his coaching on? Like, let Salmon or like the coach. Why are you breaking this? This ain't the mass baseball world doesn't give a shit. He didn't even break Walt Weiss to the Braves. I mean, yeah, he doesn't have that kind of pull in that organization. You know why? But like the fact that he's like, oh, here's the Mets hitting coach. Like, Jeff, Go eat a sandwich or something. Why are you breaking this? Like, this isn't important. Like,
this is for the
like,
beat. This is for our
Jesus.
beat writers. Yeah, exactly.
Let the small guy break it, not
Yeah.
the guy that bombs people.
MEZ saying, "Who's to say what Richardson taught won't still be used?" I don't know. Maybe it just won't be from the same voice. It just maybe they got to clone him. Who knows?
Oh, God,
I don't know.
no.
Maybe they got to clone him. They got to figure something out. But
we'll see. Again,
I'm not gonna sit here and say that this is the end of the world, because again, like I said, in the Jose Iglesias sense, not having Jose Iglesias was not the reason why they missed the postseason. And you can say in certain ways of leadership and veteran presence, but Jose Iglesias is not the only veteran piece that is good in a locker room. He's not the only guy in the world available that can give you leadership in that clubhouse or can be a good clubhouse presence. Just like Anton Richardson can't be the only good first base coach. That's it. Desi Druschel, let's just say, loss of him. They obviously gave him permission to interview elsewhere. The Mets have given permission to past coaches before to interview for other positions, and they, there's been, situations where they've been even worse and they haven't been great. Desi, from what I know, he's really good with pitch design. He has done very, very well with that. And, a lot of the success with the Yankees. Again, I'm not going to sit here as someone who's like, okay, Jeremy Hefner, they let go of him. Another assistant that comes in leaves. I don't know if that has any sense into anything that's going on with the Mets organization, but the Mets knew that there was time for a change with Jeremy Hefner being here for 6 years. They just wanted to clean it out, and maybe they just didn't really like much. But anything from the pitching standpoint from last year, I'm not going to blink an eye at. And maybe he is an asset to the Yankees and not as big of an asset to the Mets. I don't know. I really don't know what the deal was there, but I expected a little bit better from what we heard from the Yankees organization. But as we all know, when you get high praise and you're a coach and you get high praise from a guy like Andy Martino, that's probably the kiss of death right there. It really is, because we all know the type of guys that Andy Martino likes to rep and likes to, give flowers to. And, in the dark, even though he likely will tell you, oh, I never said that. We remember, Andy. We remember. All right? So, listen. Hey, it's whatever. Poaching things from the Yankees. I don't know. Will we continue that? We've seen them do that a lot under Stern. So, we'll see. We'll see what the outline is with that. But again, Anton Richardson, we wish him luck wherever he ends up. He did some great work for this team for the 2 years that he was here. Once again, and another parallel for that Iglesias comparison. Both of them were brought in by Stearns, and both of them exited with Stearns there. So, I'm just saying, can't go nuts. But, you have a glimmer of hope. You have that big, shining folk hero moment. Then fans are going to be outraged when you're gone. But, there's also that whole philosophy where I'm like, okay, what worked now, maybe it doesn't work again. I don't know. Maybe, it all really depends on, if Keith Hernandez ends up coming back, because he was talking about it publicly, about teams letting them get away with what they're doing on the base pass under Anton Richardson. Maybe that's the factor. I don't know. Maybe they have intent to bring back Keith Hernandez, and they don't want Keith Hernandez publicly saying this stuff and relaying it to these other teams. So maybe letting Anton Richardson go was the right deal for sustainability. Chess, not checkers. What do you think about that, Andrew? That's smart. I think so.
I mean, that was a statement, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I say a lot of dumb shit on this podcast.
Statement of all time? Was that a statement of all time?
If I had to put that on the wall of statements of all time, that's up there. That and, thinking Mika Zibanejad was better than Sidney Crosby, but that's for a different time.
Okay. Anyways. Here's the deal, okay? We obviously have a situation where you still have some echo, so I'm going to mute your mic there. But we also have a situation, obviously, like we just said, with the player options. Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso, AJ Minter is back. He just picked up his option. And then we obviously have the two team options with Brooks Raley and Drew Smith. Frankie Montas, we don't know, but he likely is going to take that $17 million to sit on his ass. When it comes to Edwin Diaz, obviously, there was a comment earlier from M. Easy. Let me just pull it up here. Asking about what if Robert Suarez comes with a shorter deal and less money than Diaz. Wouldn't mind Suarez if Diaz demands to get crazy. Suarez is a proven playoff performer, which is a really good point. Suarez ended up declining his player option, and he's in a similar situation with Diaz. I don't know who Robert Suarez is represented by, but I feel like Suarez is going to want to get a lot on the free agent market as well as Diaz, unless that's not the feel that you would get, Andrew. I feel like they're both kind of in the hunt for the same thing.
Yeah, I think the AAV is going to be pretty similar, probably 17 to close to 20. I would think that's what they want. Robert being 35, again, you could say it's going to be cheaper, but again, you're paying 17 to 16. We've been, when he was a free agent the first time, we were very heavily advocating to sign Robert Suarez in the offseason after the NLCS appearance, but obviously he re-signed in San Diego. And then, again, he's a very good pitcher. I don't think he's a Boris guy. I don't know. I know he's not Boris, but I don't think.
He's a Muse Sports, whatever the hell that is.
That's a TikTok trend. But again, if you're playing he's going to be shorter term, but you're getting the older player. I mean, okay, again, I like Robert Suarez. I would love to pair Robert Suarez with Edwin Diaz in the back end of the bullpen. And instead of, Helsley, that would be the better version of that. But, okay, you're going to pay similar money for a guy who's 5 years older. Like, that's the kind of, the take and pull with him. Again, I would love Robert Suarez in the Mets. But again, I don't want him just being a one-for-one replacement for Diaz. I would like him to pair with Edwin Diaz. So, again, it's an option. It's an option. Again, I don't think Stearns – again, I'm going to continue to say it until I see it. I just don't think he's paying relievers more than 2 years. So, prove me wrong, Dumpster Dave, or get rid of the nickname and just say go full Dodgers and not care. That's up to you. But I just can't see this guy giving – I just can't see him giving 4, 5, 6 years to Diaz. And then, you know what? Let's just give it to Suarez, who's, older and – the same money. If you're just going to do that, I would just tack on the extra year or two to Diaz and not replace one with an older version.
Yeah, I think we've seen David Stearns not go very aggressive with the high tier relievers in the past. We've seen him trade high profile closers in the past. The Josh Hader trade that he made with AJ Preller, who is on the with the Padres, obviously. But again, when it comes to this whole situation, I know that a lot of Mets fans, Diaz didn't publicly say, like Alonso initially, that he needed some time to think about it, obviously, and with the deadline coming up on the 6th, this is not really me turning the blind eye and being the big Edwin Diaz fan that I am. I am, and I said this a little bit on Twitter. I was talking about it with some Mets fans earlier today when he officially opt out today. I'm not very worried about this situation regarding Edwin Diaz. I'm somewhat confident that he will be back with this team, and I feel like he's probably going to be the only reliever that the Mets end up giving more than 2 years to. I think that probably 4 years, if there's like a 5th year option or whatever, that's possible that ends up happening. But I feel like in certain contexts that you're looking at, I think it only makes sense for him to end up still being a Met. And the main reason as to why I say that is the Mets can give Edwin Diaz the qualifying offer. Because remember, the last time that he was a free agent, the Mets didn't even get a chance to give him a qualifying offer. He signed the day after the World Series. He said, I want to stay here. He re-signed for 5 years. He opts out of the contract, so the Mets are able to give him a qualifying offer with nothing attached. And when you look around the league, you look at the player value, no, I do not see anyone giving up a draft pick to sign a reliever or giving up a draft pick to sign a reliever to what he wants. Unless the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are the only hurdle in this situation. So if that ends up being the case, right now I feel like, from what I'm seeing, from all the details with Edwin Diaz in this current moment of what he wants, what the market is looking like, I feel like at this point, you're just looking at Mets or Dodgers for him. Like, that's literally like my impression is Mets or Dodgers, and I don't think that Stearns is going to be inclined to get into a huge bidding war, but I do think that there's going to be some motivation to give out some term to Edwin Diaz. And there is going to be some motivation to keep him because they have the option and they're kind of expected to give him that qualifying offer. Like, I'm confident that they're going to pursue Diaz to retain Diaz. I'm not 100% confident that he's coming back, but I feel like the Mets do have the upper hand in this situation.
Yeah, because again, like for me, when I was looking at Diaz for agent, this obviously pre-deadline, I would have thought the Phillies would have been the prime target. I mean, obviously the Dodgers, obviously Tanner Scott imploding, Kirby Yates, and that their whole bullpen is now pending UFA. So I always kind of had the Dodgers as like, okay, they're just going to give him another Tanner Scott contract and move on. You know, I wouldn't be surprised because they can, you know, they got more money in freaking Japanese fraud money than they do in real money. So they can give, you know, a Dominican about, you know, 175 or Puerto Rican. Sorry, my bad. That's offensive. A great Puerto Rican over $100 million if they wanted to. I'm not just saying what is that? I ain't saying nothing wrong. But again, I guess the only other team that could make sense because their whole bullpen, like similar to the Mets and the Dodgers, the Yankees don't have a closer right now. So that would be the only other team besides obviously the Dodgers. The Phillies obviously having Duran. They're out of this conversation. That would be the Yankees, Mets, and Dodgers. Shocker. A big free agent and going to make more than probably close to 9 figures. Oh, it's only 3 teams. It's almost like we're not the problem, but everybody else is. Oh, wait, I said the quiet part out loud. Where, again, you're bidding against 2 teams that historically don't really care about giving up draft picks. The Dodgers, they can just draft guys in the 3rd or 4th round and they hit. I got Bednar, but you could put Bednar in the 7th inning. Yeah, Diaz is better. You could put Bednar back in the 8th inning, and you go to Diaz in the 9th. I mean, this is again now with Clase being a degenerate, he is the best reliever in baseball. Like who else? I mean, Duran, maybe it's a conversation. Like this is the best reliever in baseball.
Finish the phrase there. You said degenerate gambler. Because when said, oh my god, dude, you're killing me. You're killing me today. Dude, you are on a heater today. You are on a heater. Meanwhile, in Syracuse, New York, saying Diaz is the only closer that sets himself up in the 8th. He's a 6-out closer. Exactly. Which gives him a lot of value and gives him a lot of, maneuver as well. Because in comparison to guys like Josh Hader, who's like, oh, I only want to pitch in the ninth inning, Diaz will go out there and pitch no matter what. No matter what. Sure, we've had some, some mental, some mental makeup issues in the past, but he's gotten right back on that horse, and he'll go back out to the mound no matter what. Again, that injury he had was not an arm injury, so he'll pitch. He'll pitch for you. So
again, I mean,
be interesting.
I mean, I would again, like I said, I would have said Boston, but Chapman is like just the ageless wonder now, so that takes them off.
Yeah.
Like again, the Phillies with Duran, like there really is the Cubs, maybe like because they have Palencia as their closers. Like, but again, they got to worry about Kyle Tucker and building a rotation, and they're back in the bullpen. So
yeah,
in the fact, like you said,
what team is giving up if you QO Edwin Diaz, what team is giving up a draft pick to sign a draft pick and signing Edwin Diaz to a 4-year, $90 million deal? Let's just say that. Just throw that number out. Like that's my question. I feel like the Mets would be the only answer, and they wouldn't lose a draft pick.
But I think you're, and this is kind of an insane sentence I'm about to say. I think you're underrating Edwin Diaz. Yes, you could say, well, how many times have we said on this podcast there are stupid GMs?
I think I'm properly rating.
Let me.
The value of a reliever. Yeah.
You're also looking at this like a intelligent person. Let me get to my point. How many times have we gone on this podcast saying that there are dumbass GMs? So yes, rationally, there should only be 3 teams in this conversation.
I think there's some lessons that are being learned here, though. The Tanner Scott contract, the Raciel Iglesias contract. Like, there's some lessons that I feel like are being learned. Like, I don't know.
And this is maybe I wasn't watching most of the postseason because again, I just kind of get into that. If the Mets aren't involved, I really don't care. Like I'll keep track of it. Yeah. But like I was thinking that like the Final Four minus I think Seattle was the only one in the Final Four left. Yes, the Brewers, but they're not a real threat. The bullpens for those teams were awful. Like the Jays bullpen is terrible. The Dodgers bullpen was horrific. So like the fact, and yes, obviously different perspective. The Dodgers put a ton of money in, but I'm like, and maybe that again can lower Diaz's value. But like I was just watching like as the playoffs are going on, I'm like, how are these teams with god awful bullpens? I mean, the Dodgers and the Blue Jays being in the World Series, and I'm like, there are no arm talent.
Phillies, I would cross off the Phillies not just because of Duran, because you know how Kirkring messed up. They ended up their season. Edwin Diaz is possibly the worst fielding reliever you will ever see in your life. So I feel like they don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But again, that's more of a tongue-in-cheek statement. But it's one of those things that I feel like we're just talking about where if they QO him, I don't think it's going to be a situation with Pete Alonso because Pete Alonso did not have a great year before he got the qualifying offer. Edwin Diaz is coming off of one of the best years of his career. So there's definitely going to be some intrigue there, but he's not like, again, he probably is the Juan Soto of relievers, but I don't think giving up a draft pick is, something that most GMs are looking to do. Unless they're stupid, I don't know. But who knows? I feel like there is also a feeling from Diaz where let's say he gets 4 years, $80 million from the Angels because the Angels are stupid, right? He's probably going to give the Mets a chance to match, right? Will they? I don't know if they will, but I feel like there still is an upper hand for Diaz. As for the other guy who declined his player option, Pete Alonso, who knows what's going to happen there. And I asked you guys here in the chat before we get into a possible first base DH discussion of external, I asked you guys in here in a poll, if you have not voted on it yet, please do. Which internal free agent is a higher priority to retain this winter? 82% of you are saying Edwin Diaz. 11% of you are saying Pete Alonso. And 7% of you are saying neither. So what happened to the Pete Alonso fans that were screaming at us last episode? I guess Edwin Diaz is a little bit more important because, again, the closer position is important. It definitely is, and it makes the most money in the bullpen. To be honest, some high-profile relievers make more than starting pitcher fives. That's how crazy it is, because starting pitcher fives basically give you, 4 or 5 innings every 5 days. So, again, we'll see what happens on the Edwin Diaz market. I'm not panicking just yet. But again, if he goes, he goes. I thank him for his time here. Maybe I'll be a little upset about it for 24 hours, 48 hours, but hey, it's the business part of baseball. You can't just sit here and think one way and think the other because of some bias towards one player. We talked about it with Pete Alonso, the business side of baseball, him hiring Scott Boras. Same goes for Edwin Diaz. He has to do the best, do what's best for him and his family and what he's doing going forward. It's not personal, just isn't. And again, I will still be rooting for Edwin Diaz no matter what, wherever he ends up. Even if he ends up on a division rival, I will be rooting for him to beat this team, because that's how petty I am. That is a troll, by the way. If anybody gets that out of context, that is I'm trolling. I'm kidding. We good? I'm kidding.
So I can't wait for you to get Ratio when he goes to the Dodgers and strikes us out in the NLCS next year. And well, I was happy the Dodgers won. I want too much to lose. Can't wait for that quote.
That's the type of tweet I would make. It really is. Oh, man. I'm ruthless. What can I say? Anyways, speaking of pivoting, speaking of going out there to the open market, let's talk a little bit about the trade market, because we know that the Mets obviously have a Pete Alonso question to answer, whether they do retain him or not, what they end up pursuing or not. There was a report that came out from Anthony DiComo over the last week about, some options the Mets can pivot to with Pete Alonso. And one thing that was mentioned was a trade discussion about Yandy Diaz from the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, when it comes to Yandy Diaz, one thing is for certain, definitely a lot cheaper. Is going to come a lot cheaper as compared to somebody like Pete Alonso. But as for him on the offensive side, you've seen a little bit more consistency, a little bit more balance. He is definitely broken out into a great hitter in Tampa Bay. And as for the usual report from Anthony DiComo, he said that the Mets and the Rays discussed a deal involving Yandy Diaz leading up to the trade deadline, according to a person with no knowledge of the talks. Even though Diaz would have been limited to third base and DH with Alonso around. Who knows if that is their mindset with Alonso or without Alonso, but we know that Yandy Diaz, after his club option was picked up, the Rays are always looking to trade and offload salaries when they are about to be free agents or about to get a lot of money on the free agent market. That's basically their process of managing assets. Yandy Diaz coming off of yet another fantastic year. He batted 300. So for the old-fashioned people, he did bat 300. Slash 366 on base percentage, a 482 slugging, 25 home runs. He's got some great pop. 83 runs batted in, a 135 weighted runs created. Plus, he is 34 years old going into this season. And you can see, all of these StatCast metrics. He's 94th percentile in average exit velocity, hard hit rate, 94th percentile as well. xWOBA, which is quality of contact, which is kind of crazy to see him in that certain percentile when you talk about the certain sweet spot inconsistencies sometimes that you see from Yandy Diaz. But he's able to lift the ball a lot. So again, You lift the ball, you can definitely contribute, drive in a lot of runs, and definitely be good from the middle of the lineup. Doesn't chase. Good bat-to-ball skills. Against left-handed pitching is where he excels the most. A 150 weighted runs created plus last year. A 129 weighted runs created plus against right-handed pitching. He's a lot more contact on the other end against right-handed pitching, but he can definitely display power against both platoons. And like we said, he will be making likely $12 million. $12 million in salary. It is $10 million on the luxury tax for 2027. It's not 2026, it's 2027. If he has 500 plate appearances in 2026, it will vest into $13 million, which is basically cushion change to the Mets' perspective, but probably a lot for the Rays, who don't really have as much of a high payroll and don't usually pay a lot of their players long term. Yandy Diaz is someone who he's like Pete Alonso, is relatively healthy. He's out there every single day. From comparison, he can play first base. He's played third base. He's not great defensively, but on the DH/first base perspective, Andrew, I'll go to you as someone who's been very controversial in the Alonso talks. You always have been. It's one of your pieces. It's one of the components of your charm. Yandy Diaz, 34 years old, not fleet of foot, but a very balanced hitter. Is this something that you would revisit on the trade market if he becomes available? If Pete Alonso ends up going elsewhere, you never know.
I'm genuinely shocked because I was told by the mass media that there are no options if you don't sign Pete Alonso. You are going into a black hole of nothingness. So I'm very shocked that somehow there has magically...
You're drowning in nothing.
I am genuinely shocked that you're telling me that there are good baseball players who could potentially be added that don't play in New York. Am I hearing that correctly? I don't. I believe you're
LFGM though.
That is true, and I believe you're saying some fake news. But I'll play along with your game. Yandy Diaz is a very interesting option. Like you said, the defensive value, which again we can start run percentage. Everyone's like, oh, he's bad defensively. He's in the 33rd percentile in OAA on Baseball Savant, which isn't great.
Yeah.
But Carson, I think you might have this information. What percentile was Pete Alonso this past season?
Well, he's got to be 100th, right? Because he's amazing at everything, right?
You are correct. There is a 1 in that number because he was in the first percentile in OAA on Baseball Savant. So even at that, you're getting a 30% better. Second percentile. Sorry.
Watch it.
I know calories are a big thing. 1 calorie can make a big deal. But again, you're getting a 30% better.
You are having a generational episode, dude. Generational. Holy shit. Oh my god.
It's off season, Rhino. You know what happens.
Oh my god.
You know what happens in the off season, right?
Just fix it in post, Carson. Oh my god. Anyways, move on.
So just strictly based, if we've talked about run prevention with David Stearns, it's an upgrade. Is it a great defender? No, but it's better than what we've had defensively. It's a different profile of hitter where you're getting, like you said, an all-around hitter compared to just selling out for power, or the idea of selling out for power, but yet still trying to hit singles to right field, which, one guy was trying to do. Yandy does it, hits to all fields. Again, it's not like an Isak Freitas situation where we've seen with the Rays, where it's like he goes all over the place. He's won batting titles. So again, you're getting a bit of both. You can appease the old school fan, and then like you said, with the percentiles, he is a great hitter under the hood. Yeah. On the field, you see it.
Great raw power. Great raw.
Right. Again, I know there was a problem early in his career where he couldn't lift the ball. I think he's gotten better with that. I know earlier in his career he did have a problem
he's
lifting the
completely
ball
different now.
consistently.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's adapted and has become a better overall hitter. He was, again, like I said, like I've been trying to tell everybody that there are options. He was one of the top guys on my list for the video. That like this is an interesting guy, and like you said, it's $10 to $12 million. So okay, you're paying 10. Let's say you acquire him, and hey, it's $12 million for the next 2 years. And I know you hate playing this game, but this is probably a game that David Stern is playing in your head. Okay, you have a 2-year stopgap. Maybe Ryan Clifford could potentially 2 years from now continue have 2 years to develop, and then take the right after he becomes 30, after his 36-year-old season. Boom, easy there. But unlike most times the Mets do that, you're bringing in a proven, really good bat and really good player to fill that hole. And again, it's $12 million compared to Alonso, who's probably going to get 27 to 30. It gives you that excess money to say, hey, we can go give a little more money to Edwin Diaz. Hey, we want to upgrade second base. Hey, that's $13 million. That's pretty much a second base value right there. Especially, like we say, you can find a Walmart employee to play second base. Well, that's about, that's a pretty good salary for a Walmart employee. You want to go improve. You want to go improve center field. Again, now you have a little extra money to maybe go get a center field. Or really, I get it. It's not your homegrown talent, but again, there are options out there. And the fact that this is why I've been so anti-Alonso. It's not the fact that I don't want Pete Alonso back. It is the fans saying there are no options if you do not sign him.
How are you replacing this production?
And again, what was we saw what Yandy Diaz WRC plus was. What was Pete Alonso's WRC plus last season?
Well, it was 135 for Diaz. Alonso last year 141. So it's a downgrade forever. And again, like we said, there's no solution.
And again, you're getting a similar type hitter. You're getting a better defender. It sounds like an upgrade, but again, you got to take the orange and blue glasses off. And again, the Mets are the only team that ever plays baseball. Every other player sucks, and I need to love this polar bear to the end of time, and we can't have anybody else. It's not like, we haven't had better first baseman, Carlos Delgado, or, just quality. He's the greatest first baseman never faced this franchise.
Carlos Delgado. He's on the Hall of Fame ballot for contemporary
committee or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, the contemporary baseball era ballot for 2026. So, yeah, I remember when he was taken off the ballot for some reason. I don't even know why. So, yeah, congratulations to him. But speaking of first basemen right now, again, in this certain situation, the Mets don't need to sit here and say, I need to find 40 home runs, 120 RBIs. Because again, there is a mindset where you look at it as, I think Mets fans look at it from a view and they say, well, how are we replacing this? Who's going to be his replacement? And when you hear his replacement, you think of one player. You don't have to replace Pete Alonso with one player. You have to replace his production. If offense is what you're looking for, you can get it from plenty. But sorry, something really funny that Andrew just messaged me. Okay. You don't need to just replace him with one player. You can bring in two players, two pieces. And to be honest, when you're talking about the salary of Yandy Diaz, making $10 million, $12 million, there is a reality, to be honest, if you wanted to, which I don't think there is going to be one from the mind of David Stearns because of defense being what he is pushing. There is a reality where you can have Diaz and Alonso. It's not a high reality, but it could happen. It could. I do think that you need to move two guys that we have videos about, but there is a reality where that could happen. Possibly. He could DH. Maybe I don't think he's going to play
third
base.
No.
Considering how many infielders they have. But you never know. They move around pieces. Maybe there is reality there. But if Pete Alonso is no longer an option, and he's no longer the only option he has, I would 100% go for Yandy Diaz. There's some things about him that I don't know if it fits well in power output to Citi Field as compared to places like Tropicana or that Little League Stadium they were playing at last year in Tampa. But we'll see what a guy like Jeff Albert, Troy Snitker, guys like that can do with him to maybe maximize that power even more. And with a guy that doesn't chase as much, he can still have some really good ABs while also keeping that great raw power that he has. I think it would be a great addition. I think that it will provide some balance in the middle of the lineup for a team that really struggles with situational hitting, that Yandy Diaz has done very well has been very good at throughout his entire career. And then also you're talking about a Yandy Diaz who has postseason experience, even though he hasn't been fantastic in it. It's not an upgrade from Pete Alonso, but it definitely can fill in some of that production. And we're not just saying just bring in Yandy Diaz and that's it. That's all we're going to do for the lineup. Because there's things they could do in center field. Somebody talked about third base, the money that they use to absorb the contract of Yandy Diaz. Maybe they can look at guys in third base. There's a big third baseman that just went on the free agent market that maybe they go after. But we can't go after him because we have the next David Wright in the hot corner. But, Andrew, on the GM mind, it's not likely with the way run prevention is being preached. But there's a reality where you could have Yandy Diaz and Pete Alonso. It's not a big reality, but there's a reality where that could happen with how cheap his contract is for these next 2 years.
Yeah, and I mean, it's again a low possibility, but maybe you pair him with another DH, and maybe you trade or sign for. Maybe you sign or trade for another big bat, and now you're going, instead of paying what you would pay for Alonso with one bat, you lengthen your lineup with two bats. Another thing, I think somebody put it in the chat. I've been banging this drum every year to the deadline. We've seen that Stearns has had interest in Rays relievers. Why not put my favorite word? What's my favorite? A bundle. And then you can get Yandy and Fairbanks. You fill two holes in one trade. Like you have, and even if maybe they want to move one of their young starters, controllable guys, you can get another one of those. I think you can get with Tampa Bay, which what has been the number one team Stearns has made the most trades with is Tampa, which is, you're dealing with the devil, but, Keyshawn Askew hasn't really panned out, but I think we've won that one because Brooks Raley is literally Jesus. But, so again, we've seen Stearns is very active with the Rays. You have that ability again. And they have plenty of things that you need. If it's relievers, if you want a controllable starter, I doubt they're trading Junior Caminero right now. But wait a couple years, maybe that could be an option. Let's say you want to upgrade second base, and you ship out McNeil, or you clear out some of his infielders. We've heard the deadline. They were interested in Brandon Lau, even if he's a DH position potentially. Like the Rays are interesting, but they're always willing to move money. And again, even if you're getting 20 cents on the dollar, which is what the Rays do, and Stearns clearly doesn't have the fear of, well, I can give him, this 18-year-old, and in 2 years he's probably going to be a god. I mean, Eric Orsi for Jose Siri really didn't work out, but you got him over with Brooks Raley. But Brooks Raley wasn't a Stearns move. Maybe he should just stop making trades with Tampa Bay. He doesn't win. Phil Maton, another bum. Like I think he just stop making trades with Philly, Tampa. Yeah. So again, it's an interesting bundle, and again,
Even
And there'll be
Sandy
video
did well with Tampa. I mean, he got
exactly
Smith for
Lucas Duda. But again, like we keep
gotta
saying,
stop. We gotta stop the banter here because we are going off the rails in this episode.
hey, we haven't even got to the 2-hour 40 mark. We're doing pretty good on time. We're
I
dumb
get
shit.
it because probably we've spent 20 of it just making jokes and yapping. But again, it's not seen as an upgrade. It shouldn't be seen as an upgrade. We're not looking at this in the eyes of a fantasy baseball owner, because that's what a fantasy baseball owner would do, being like, well, how do we replace this? How do we get this replacement? Pete Alonso's replacement doesn't have to be one player. That's the thing. And maybe this entire conversation is moot because they end up bringing back Pete Alonso. Who knows? We don't know. We have no clue. But there's more than one right answer in this situation when we've talked about this team underachieving the way that it has. And when it comes to Pete Alonso, again, there's a price. There is a price. And we're going to talk about Pete Alonso plenty in this offseason. We're going to talk about him a lot in our next episode that we have. I expect to do that a lot. However, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But
you guys love yapping this episode. Hell, come back next week. It'll be a hell of amount of yapping.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of yapping. That's possibly going to happen. But again, we have seen even better from Yandy Diaz as compared to what he did last year, and a little bit younger. I mean, this guy can get on base, doesn't chase, makes a lot of contact. He's just a very well-rounded hitter. And that's kind of what you want to see from a DH. Unless that DH is a full-on 50 home run threat, you want to see a guy who can give you that type of balance because he is a hitter, a designated hitter. That's all the value that he gives you. And even if he can give you some of that positional flexibility, even though he was a little bit out of his prime when we signed him, JD Martinez, that's kind of what you're seeing from a guy like Yandy Diaz. And no, he doesn't have the pedigree that JD Davis. Whoa, excuse me. JD Martinez has. He's had those similar seasons where he's been a very balanced hitter. Gives you a lot of contact, a lot of power, great in these certain situations, and he has a lot of experience in big spots. So we'll see. We'll see how they approach it, but Yandy Diaz, another option that doesn't exist because we need Pete Alonso back. Right, Andrew?
Again, God forbid, the Dodgers have a whole country as a farm team. God forbid we use other teams as farm teams to make our team better. I mean, gotta just we draft, develop. God forbid, we go out of the organization.
Let's put this into perspective too. One last thing about Yandy Diaz. He is making next year likely to make what? Like we said, $10 million, $12 million. He would be your DH. Let's say you plug in that type of productions hypothetically, a 135 weighted runs created plus, 25 home runs, batting 300, near 850 OPS. He is making $12 million. Last year, the DH position for you was making $27 million. And how many home runs combined did they have? 6? 6? Maybe? I don't know. I guess the everyday, like we're saying, Marte and Winker. A lot better bang for your buck.
We have Mark Vientos, and Mark Vientos is better than Yandy Diaz. What are you talking about, brother?
He's also, he's the next JD Martinez, because JD Martinez helped him out. So automatically he's going to be JD Martinez. But hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens, how they approach this. We've seen other guys in this conversation before. Spencer Torkelson was brought up last year. Ryan Mountcastle was brought up last year, even though he's definitely went down the totem pole. Josh Naylor, again, somebody that can also be talked about as well. We can do a little bit of a rundown of that. Who knows? We'll see how they, put this thing together. And Pete Alonso, I feel like there's going to be a little bit different of an approach. And we're going to talk about it in the next episode a little bit more about Pete Alonso and what the Mets offer with them, what their patience is going to be with him. But as for the external options, Yandy Diaz is one of them. And I'm sure that we will do some breakdowns of some other avenues that they can pivot to if they don't end up retaining Pete Alonso. I am okay going into next year without Pete Alonso. I know there are some Mets fans that aren't. And if you're not, that's fine. And I know that everyone is going to want David Stearns outright fired if Pete Alonso ends up signing somewhere else. But I'm okay going in this direction. And if you're not okay with it, I guess you're just going to have to wait and see. Boycott whatever you want to boycott. Because the Mets are trying to go in a direction that helps the team and not just pertain to, well, he's Pete Alonso. He is the all-time leader in home runs in the franchise. Let's give him $200 million. That's not what we're going to do. Because if you're trying to think like the Dodgers, get all the good players to beat the good Dodgers, you're going to end up like the Angels on the field. And that's what we have seen a lot from the Mets. We've seen some highs, and then we've seen a lot of Angels. That's basically the definition of mid. Angels. Baseball mid. Angels. As for some other news that I do want to put out here before we end it off here, I think we're going to run it a little bit more English. That'd be cool. Let me try that again. We're going to run it for about 5 more minutes, and then we're going to get off here, mainly because, again, next episode, like I said, it'll probably be longer than the usual 2 hours. So, Christian Scott, like we said, he threw his final bullpen session before he will be revamping in January to get his arm fully conditioned. It looks like he is expected to be ready for spring training. So, good news for the Mets on the pitching side. The Mets also made some hires, like we said, Jimmy Nelson. Rachel Folden is the new Double-A Binghamton hitting coach. She has been around for a long time. She was with the Cubs most recently. So, again, the young guys, very important, the development of the young guys. And, we will see where they go directly from here. I saw a lot of, people comparing her, apparently what she kind of looks a little bit like Wilmer Flores, which is a Mike Francesa, Rosie O'Donnell discussion that I don't want to get into as of right now. Hey, you open the gate. You open the gate. Don't look at me. You open the gate.
You yell at me for saying I didn't say nothing like that. You make it from what a woman looks like. I mean, I don't even do that. I at least have a line. Damn.
Yeah, a line. He's got a line. And then also one more thing. Juan Soto is a National League MVP finalist, which is kind of on the sour part because the Mets did not make the playoffs. And it's more of just the fact of the individual stat line. But it is kind of funny in terms of the rewards of the awards of how inconsistent this is, that Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor, back-to-back years, MVP candidates, not an all-star.
Yeah. So
in that year.
So
that's kind of weird, isn't it?
So are we putting money on Carson Bench to do that, or who do we put our money on this year for this non-all-star MVP finalist?
Well, it's exports, so it's got to be.
Oh, okay, so who? Okay, or Brent Rooker.
Yeah.
Ideas.
Yeah. And then we also know, I think it's already been announced, Soto, Alonso, and Lindor up for the Silver Sluggers. David Peterson and Luis Torrens were up for Gold Gloves at their respective positions, and they both did not get it. I'm not sure who got it. I wasn't really paying attention.
Patrick Bailey got it for the catchers,
makes sense.
And then Logan Webb got it for the starting pitcher.
All right. That makes sense. That's a battery. That's a battery with the Giants. Anyways,
yep.
So other than that, I think we're going to wrap it up here. We're going to shorten it. Like we said, video coming out on Thursday. It is going to be talking about a little bit more of internal stuff before we get into the nitty-gritty of the off season. And we will be back next Thursday for the next episode of the podcast. So for those of you who tuned in live, thank you. For those of you who stuck here to the end, for here for a little bit, maybe they come back here and watch it on playback. For those watching right now on playback, want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel. Turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. Follow all of us individually. And finally, as we are officially in the offseason, let's go Mets. And we will see you guys next time.